agenda with the removal of item 3.10, which will be discussed in the action items, but including approval of minutes of the regular Board of Education meeting on March 8th, 2021, approval of the proposed accounts for payment, approval of budgetary receipts and expenditures for March 2021, approval of the minutes of the Board of Education workshop March 18th, 2021, approval of the Committee of the Whole minutes March 25th, 2021, approval of option students, approval of resignations of Aaron Johnson, speech language pathologist, Pam Charnick, high school math, Leah Hips, high school math, Todd Eckert, high school strength training, approval of contracts for 2021-2022, London Bogseth, BD teacher at Paddock Lane, Kyler Urbanovsky, high school special education, Taylor Dix, resource teacher at Stoddard, Haley Gillette, elementary skills BD at Paddock, Mallory Hudka, 3rd grade at Stoddard, Taylor Raziska Shield, 3rd grade at Stoddard, J.C. Burr, 3rd grade at Stoddard, Carlina Grove, elementary counselor, Kylie Bent, level 3 teacher at Paddock Lane.
I have a motion. Can I have a second?
Second.
Second by Janet.
Are we not including item 3.10 on that?
That was pulled in order to discuss it further in the action portion of the meeting.
Okay.
All right, any comments or questions on the consent agenda? Hearing none, can I have your votes, please? All right, that is approved with 7 votes. All right, first up, we have outstanding recognition. Dr. Nielsen, Employee of the Month.
Hey, good evening. I am very excited to recognize this person because one, I don't know if this person knows that he is receiving this award tonight. And two, this person has done a tremendous amount of work for our district and deserves to be recognized and probably will be recognized a little bit later on. But Mr. Randall, will you come on down? Yep. It's you. Yay! Mr. Neil Randall is the April Employee of the Month. Mr. Randall has shown that he is the type of employee that puts the district first. With Neil's sacrifice of time and energy, he is one of the hardest workers I have ever worked with. Whether it is finishing cleaning up after a late night basketball game, to setting up for an early morning wrestling meet, or making sure coworkers and students are supported with their needs, Neil assures that the task is done and done well. Additionally, Neil spends much time ensuring the community of Beatrice is positively represented as a place where visiting teams, bands, and officials are well received. He clearly demonstrates Orangeman pride and works to instill that in all that surround him. The leadership and guidance that Neil has shown in developing a new conference, the Trailblazer Conference, will benefit the school for years to come. Neil has built so many positive relationships with students, staff, and families that help build a responsible and supportive culture in our school district. Just when Neil's plate seems to be overflowing with work, he willingly accepts more tasks and finds a way to get it all done while meeting high standards he sets for himself. The countless hours that have been unknown by many and uncounted by him deserves to be rewarded. While recognition of Employee of the Month, in my opinion, will not equal all the work over the years, it is a way to show appreciation for all that Neil has done. Neil is almost always the first person to show up somewhere and ask, how can I help? He has helped develop so many fine young athletes as well as young ladies and gentlemen of our community. We would like to congratulate Mr. Neil Randall, April Employee of the Month.
We have those.
Thank you. Good job.
All right, next up, Business Friend of the Month.
Allison, you can come up. Thank you. As started this fall, we Schools Board of Education, I'd like to take an opportunity to thank all of the businesses in our community that sponsor and help and provide support to our students on a regular basis throughout the course of the school year, or years as it may be. We're very fortunate to have so many businesses in our community that do step up and help out and make sure that we as a school have the things we need, whether it be something as simple as a place to practice or all the way up to sponsorship on our scoreboards or whatever it may be. We consider ourselves very lucky. So tonight, we recognize the YMCA as our Business Friend of the Month. The YMCA is an active partner in supporting the development of youth in our community. Through collaboration with the YMCA, we are able to provide multiple opportunities for our students, including swimming and diving as an activity, swimming lessons for second graders. Many of you probably didn't know that, but our second graders do take swimming lessons, and weight training programs for our sports teams. The YMCA has been coordinating before and after school care for our community and programs since their inception that help in supporting programmatic growth activities for kids, along with the social and dynamic learning opportunities that promote the advancement of the youth in our community. We feel very fortunate to have a long-standing and positive relationship with the YMCA and its leadership. Allison, thank you very much.
I got a picture of that.
My best side.
Yes. Thank you.
Our best smile.
All right, next up, we have student recognition. And who is, Mr. Randall, I guess you're doing that.
Thank you. It is my pleasure, much more comfortable on my part, to welcome a lot of great faces. I'm glad to see a lot of you here. We're here tonight to recognize our state championship boys basketball team. So I don't know if we have room for everybody, so we'll maybe just call you up a few at a time. But great season for our team. It was a great winter season, as a lot of you know. About a month ago, I was here talking about our dance team and our wrestlers who had such a great winter season, and our boys basketball team just kind of put the cherry on top. We got hot at the right time, won our district game and got qualified for state. Faced a team first round that was probably ranked first most of the year, and probably not a lot of people gave them a chance to win, but the boys went out, they believed in themselves, got the job done, got in the semifinal, knocked off Waverly, and had kind of a miracle shot in the final to get it to overtime. That was one of the most exciting games you'll ever see. And here they are today, they're state champions at Class B. So congratulations to our boys basketball team, their coaches, the managers, all the parents. Obviously there's a ton of people who have a great deal to do with getting to that point. And it's just been a great thing. And as I was talking to Coach Ribble this morning, it just feels like our school has a little bit of a lift, a little bit of a positive mental lift, and I think being successful certainly has a lot to do with that. So congratulations to that team. And as I call you up, folks, if you'll come up, I don't know if they're all here, but as I call, if you'll come up, I think Mr. Zimmerman will have a certificate for you. So first of all, the players: Simon Cool, Bennett Crandall, Dawson Loomis, Dawson, Elliot Juergens, I call him Easy E, Devin Smith, Jace Peasod, Drew Gleason, Caden Glenn, Bryant Juergens, Shelton Crawford, Luke Feist, Tucker Timmerman, Crew Mike, Salazar.
Nope, sorry, I gave you the wrong one.
Luke, don't you know your name? Kian Oman. And I also want to recognize our coaches, head coach Clark Rebel, who's here with us tonight, assistants Nick Simmons, Zach Decker, Andrew Veneman, Trey Bardsley, Larry Zarbanicki, Randall Rickenberg, Jim Edwards, and Jordan Harlan. And I know I haven't left anybody out because this is the same list that's going to go on our trophy that hopefully will be in our trophy case soon. Also our managers, Hannah Jobman, Brenna McKernan, Sonia Romero Benavides, Olivia Sadoff, and Carson Ribble. Would you join me in a round of applause for these great... And then last but not least, we want to recognize some folks that have gotten some postseason honors. These probably aren't the last ones they'll receive, but we'd like to recognize those who've been recognized by the state newspapers. So first of all, Elliot Jurgens, will you come back forward again? Elliot was named a second-team All-Stater in Class B this year. Elliot? He's my neighbor, so that kind of makes me sort of famous because of that. The super shooter, I don't see him here today, but Caden Glenn, the transfer from Johnson Brock, has been a great addition to our team. He was also a second-team All-Stater. And on the girls' side, Mac Hatcliffe, would you come up, please? Mac Hatcliffe has had a great career in basketball. This year was no exception. She battled a lot of injuries. The heart and soul of our girls' basketball team, you can go on up there. You know, we ran into kind of a tough part of the season right at the end. We were scooting along, I think, 13-1. And the last few games on our girls' schedule were some of the toughest teams we had to play. So unfortunately, our girls didn't qualify, but they had a great season, and a huge amount of that is due to Matt Hatcliffe. So congratulations. Mac was a first-team All-Stater. She was a first-teamer. She was also named the honorary captain of our Trailblazer Conference all-conference team. So best player in the conference as voted by the coaches in the conference. Pretty nice accomplishment. So just to finish up, thanks again for everybody for being here. It's a special night. Really proud of these kids, proud of the coaches, and again thankful for parents and all those others that have supported them along the way. It's been a fun ride, and spring's off to a good start too. So thank you again.
Now, if there was anyone who would wish to leave at this time.
Thank you, guys. Thanks for coming. Congratulations on a fine season. Mac, congratulations. Thank you very much for all you've done for us. Thanks, Coach.
All right, next up in the information portion, we have the student update with Colt Brenner.
Okay, at the preschool this week is the Week of Young Children, and Tuesday they will have a string bean concert, thanks to the generous donation by Pinnacle Bank. On Friday they will have a family fun night at Sonic with a petting zoo and a balloon artist. At the elementaries, the Beatrice Middle School counselors and principals are beginning to visit the 5th graders to talk about the transition to middle school. And later in April and early May, the 5th graders will have a chance to go to the middle school and see what it's like. At the middle school, track has begun, and the Beatrice Middle School was recently victorious at the Fairbury Duel. On May 7th, Beatrice will, I don't know if that's right or not. Never mind, sorry. Baseball is the only undefeated team in Nebraska right now with a 9-0 record. The boys soccer team is 8-2. The girls soccer team won 3 times in their last 3 games, scoring 19 goals in those games. The girls track team has 2 runner-up finishes this season, and the boys golf team is off to a solid start. And then there's a music concert April 30th. That's all I got.
All right, thank you, Colt. Did anybody have any questions for Colt? All right, next up with board reports, we have Committee of the Whole, and that's from March 25th. Notice of the meeting was given in advance. Everyone was here but Doris. I called the meeting at 6 p.m. Let's see, approval of the agenda. That went through good. High school schedule. Mr. Suter briefly recapped the information that was shared at the last committee of the whole meeting. He shared the teacher committee had had 2 additional meetings since that time and also reached out to interdistricts for additional feedback. He described how they were going to go to skinny classes in order to fit multiple in there instead of having full 90-minute for certain classes that didn't work really well with a full 90 minutes. And then we moved on to strategic planning, and Dr. Nielsen provided an update on that and gave us all the dates for what's coming up over this year. And hopefully by the December board meeting, we will be able to give an approval of our new strategic plan. Transportation, Dr. Nielsen shared that a meeting was recently held and a request made by the bus company to look at the possibility of eliminating 2 to 3 routes and developing more of a hub system. And we had a long discussion about the instructional specialist. And then we talked, well, I guess we didn't talk about COVID masks. We were waiting until tonight to go ahead and take care of that. With the superintendent update, Mr. Alexander talked about LD 408 and CARES 3 and the new board member opportunities. Then no one spoke at the public forum, and we adjourned at 8:10 p.m. And next up, the stance report.
Okay, briefly, the stance meeting was held last Thursday. Most of the discussion with all the exciting things that are happening in our school district, there are also exciting things happening at the legislature. And so our meeting consisted primarily of updates as to what's been going on in the legislature and bills that we should be tracking. So I'll be honest, most of those bills I will be touching on at the end of my superintendent's report, so I'm not going to cover them twice. But that was what the majority of the meeting revolved around, was basic legislation taking place in Unicameral at this time.
All right, next up, Americanism Committee. Mrs. Martin.
We have an update, the Americanism Committee update. K through 12 social studies teachers have been busy this year ensuring the curriculum is aligned to the state standards, as well as ensuring students have the opportunity to dive deeper into the concepts and ideas. In the social studies curriculum, K through 12 social studies teachers are working through their standards to ensure the standards are aligned with our current curriculum. 6 through 12, they'll be updating curriculum resources this year. A decision will be made in May or June and be brought to the board for approval. We will be working with K through 5 during the summer to begin evaluating materials. Social studies curriculum themes, they devote time to include and stress the contributions of all ethnic groups to the development and growth of America as a great nation, to the military contributions to the development and growth of the nation, and to the contributions to art, music, education, medicine, literature, science, politics, and government of the nation. Students study the contributions of leaders in the development and growth of America as a nation. At the high school, students are required to attend a public meeting and construct a response to the public meeting. This year, virtual board meeting attendance was required. The board meetings were also watched during government classes. Classes spent time discussing how school board functions and the roles of school board members, as well as comparing it to the function of other local and state boards. The social studies curriculum is found on the Build Your Own Curriculum site, housed on the district's curriculum and assessment website. Some other components include, at the elementary, over 60 minutes of patriotic instructions. Students recite the pledge and learn the meaning of it. In social studies, reading, and language arts instruction, over 60 minutes a week, which tie to social studies standards. Music and art instruction tied to social studies standards. In middle school, American history is covered in grades 5th and 8th. World and ancient history is covered in grades 6 and 7. Government is infused into the 8th grade. Government and U.S. history at the high school cover American civics. All schools celebrate and learn about the holidays throughout the year. That ends my report.
Did anybody have any questions or comments for Doris on the Americanism Committee report? Hearing none, this is now the time for public forum and citizens' requests or comments related to agenda items that are on the agenda. Did anyone wish to speak at this time? Yes, please come up and say your name and address for the good of the order. Was there anyone else in the room that had wished to speak? So we got 3, 4. All right. We can go 5 minutes per person. That puts us out at 20 minutes.
My name is Ashley Mason. Address is 1300 Lincoln Street. Parents have never needed and will never need you to wear a mask for their students. Parents have never needed and will never need you to be vaccinated for their students. If you choose to do those things, you are doing them for you, not for the students. Parents never asked you to be the keeper of their children's health. Parents did ask that you teach their children to read and write and do math. Parents are the keeper of their children's health. Pretending otherwise is just virtue signaling. It is acting like you are a superior person because you choose to mandate unnecessary and unscientific things for students. I'm hereby absolving you of that notion. The state does not require you to mask students. The State Department of Education does not require you to mask students. The Public Health Solutions Department does not require you to mask students. You chose this. You can end this. School districts are not responsible for stopping a virus with a 99.97% survival rate. We are each only responsible for our own children's health, period. While I sat here today, I thought about all of the pictures I have seen up on the Beatrice Public Schools website of students going around unmasked during school hours, of students swimming in the YMCA pool unmasked, while other students are continually disciplined for not being masked. Students are continually being bullied by students and teachers and administrators within each school building. It is unacceptable the way that you guys are handling this situation, and I urge you to vote optional masks for all students and to speak to every teacher and employee who works for this district and explain to them that bullying students into wearing a mask is unacceptable on every level.
If you'll say your name and address.
I'm Nicolette Brewer, 1201 North 11th Street, and I'm a former student of BHS.
Thank you.
This is a poem that I wrote to cope with emotions that me and other students were experiencing due to bullying and separation because I chose not to wear a mask. People act instead of taking a step back. People yell and shout instead of thinking things out. This is the way of the world, but it does not have to be. People have degraded me. People have threatened my peace. I've gone through the main heat, and I can peacefully sleep. I'm not the only one. I am not done. I'm only halfway there, and I have more to spare. I have hope so that one day I can come.
Brianna Brewer, 1201 North 11th Street, also a former student of BHS. The essence of bullying in our schools over the mask policy is fully on display in how the classrooms are set up for those who want a mask break, which the district promised to provide at regular intervals but did not. One classroom, there was a whiteboard in the front, and to the right or left of it, there was a desk turned away from the whiteboard pointing towards the rest of the classroom. Your other option was to stand in the back corners of the classroom, ostracized for wanting to take a mask break. So which do you choose? Probably neither, because these things are very disruptive to the classroom. You can't take notes, you can't do what you were supposed to be doing in the classroom. On top of this, we were given these very poorly made cloth masks, which tore apart within 2 weeks of wearing them. And the package said, "Do not use as a medical device." Last meeting, Janet, you said, during the meeting, references were made numerous times that we are asking our children to wear medical devices. My research shows that cloth face coverings are not medical devices and are not classified as such under OSHA regulations. If it is not a medical device, why are we treating it and using it as such? I had emailed the student representative about giving the administrators a survey to look over, which had not leaned on any side. If anything, encouraged students to have an opinion on a subject that they'd never been allowed to have an opinion on, because if they had the wrong one, they would be bullied, like I was. I was told that I will have to ask the administrators for permission, which in all reality seems very fair, because I'm not in the school district anymore, and you guys would like to see the quiz before, or the survey before other students see it. I had a follow-up email saying, I regret to inform you that after asking the administration, I've learned that students, especially those leads bigotry and bullying. People unwilling to converse is the reason that bullying and all the different isms are on the rise in the country. If your position is so strong, you would have no problem actually sitting down and learning about an opposing position and defending your position. However, the fact is all that the board and administration has done is regurgitate the talking points of the CDC and the public health officials and never actually come to any real understanding of the matter at hand. Not surprising, this is the education approach that's taken at school. Regurgitate information without understanding truly how the conclusion is reached. Beyond this, that the administration or the board wants to deal with bullying in the school is more of a distraction point of pretending to do something than actual desire to do something. Had the board or the administration cared about bullying, wording in the mass out forms such as, I'm not willing to do my part to slow the spread of the virus, or words spoken by board members such as, I'm willing to do whatever is necessary to make this go away faster, would not have been written nor spoken. From these statements, you are implying that those who do not hold your position are part of the problem and need to be dressed down accordingly. That we who don't believe the masks are beneficial or are potentially harmful do not care about their neighbor or their classmates as much as you do, or that we are selfish. Well, that could not be further from the truth. The difference between your position and my position is that I took time to find out both sides of the argument. Both sides of the argument were presented to me, and I, a sophomore in high school, was able to comprehend the mask-free conclusions. I was not afraid to find out the entirety of the situation and ask many questions. My parents presented my brother and sister the facts from both sides of the argument. We were allowed to make our own conclusions. I'm going to skip ahead a little bit, sorry. The phenomenon of saturation, where a mask is breathed into for longer than 20 minutes, leads to moisture saturation and begins creating aerosols in a recent publication. Something my dad has repeatedly tried to explain to both the school board and the health board before it was even put into publication. When it had been discussed recently regarding the number of COVID deaths in the school age, this is the story that I've mentioned tonight. Please stop the policy immediately and do not continue to put the health of BPS students at risk.
Amy Southwick, 113 Wildwood Court. I come to you tonight, I sent all of you an email this afternoon because I knew I had way more than 5 minutes. And so I just wanted to reference a few things and a few things I didn't add in there. But as far as the masks go and the health and the benefits to our kids, we're at the point where it's not cut and dry anymore. In March, the CDC came out with a study that said, we've done the study, it was a year long, and we say masks actually reduce the spread. If you read beyond the headline, it was a 1.9% difference after 100 days. So I ask you, if something is less than 2% difference, is it something that you're going to stay on board with and hold on to as fact? The CDC also has come out within the last week to say, hey, we were wrong. Surfaces are not spreading. You're not going to get this from surface. It's 1 in 10,000 chance of contracting coronavirus through a surface. They've also come out and said there's been studies in Wuhan, there's been studies in Florida, there's been studies all over that have said there is no merit to the asymptomatic spread. which is one of the big things on why we have to wear masks, because we don't know if we have it, and if we don't know if we have it, then we're shedding it. We're not shedding it. Your viral load is not high enough and asymptomatic, and I can list 3 studies that will cite that for you. So the concern of spreading this virus because you don't know you have it is becoming mute. One of the articles I did send you referenced some of the things I talked to you about in February, and that is the fact that we still to this day don't know what masks are going to do for a long-term effect on your physiological or your mental. But the article that I sent you stated there are certain things about breathing back in all the bacteria and all the stuff that your body is letting go out of your lungs, because that's what your body does. It's not a good thing. I'm going to breathe it out. I don't want it in my body. As Brianna was just referencing, because it stays right here, you're breathing it back in. And they're finding that you're going to have more long-term effects, and it might not be right now. And then again, it addressed the mental health. And as I said in the email, and I'll say today, we have mental health problems growing in our schools, and a lot of it is because teenagers, it is hard enough when you can see someone glaring at you across the room. It's worse when you can't read someone's facial expression. Your insecurities are rising, and there's just a lot of aspects to that. When I spoke last time, I had parents come up to me, and I could not believe how many people shared with me that their child was suicidal, that their child was in counseling, that their child was waiting to get into a counselor. And it all has started since July through October. And when I talked to a counselor in Lincoln, she said part of it is the masks, because yes, we are taking away that facial recognition. We are taking away the personality and how we connect through our faces. If you look at some studies epidemiologists have done, and they said the coronavirus is following the bell-shaped pattern of epidemics that were predicted by Farrer's Law that was created in 1840, regardless of mitigation efforts, which mean masks are not doing anything. If you look state after state, you can compare North Dakota and South Dakota, one with a state mandate, one without, and the curve is the same. So what we're trying to do to protect others, I understand, but a year later, we can look back and show, and the numbers are showing that they're not doing what we think they're doing. And so when I talk to you about the mental health and the physical health and what we don't know what is gonna happen, the 7 of you I know are doing your best, but you don't know my child, I do. And I should have the right to make the decision on what's best for him or her. And I think there's a lot of parents out there that feel that way, but when you speak up, you get chastised, you get ridiculed, and most people just don't want to deal with it. But I know a few months ago somebody challenged you to ask the parents, and I don't think you did, but I still think if you would allow parents and have the respect for parents to let us make the decision, and I understand that you don't have any control over mitigation as far as isolation and quarantine, but I would still say, at what point do some of our leaders in our community start to question the authority that are giving you those recommendations? Because if you look at the reproductive numbers of corona right now, they are at or below what the end of a flu season is. So the reproductive in Nebraska is 1.1, which means one person can infect 1.1 people. It was way different back in the fall, but that's where it is. And according to the CDC, when you have a reproductive number of 1, it's at a plateau. And I sent you graphs to show that we've been at a plateau since February. Once it goes under 0, it's dying out. And we have 15 states that are under 0. The United States as a whole is at a 1. We are at a plateau. We are not in the thick of a pandemic. And the mitigation strategies that we thought were working are not. And I would beg you to let the parents decide what is best for the children when it comes to masks. Thank you.
We have time.
We have time?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Yes, we do.
Janet Faxon, 27255 Southwest Road. So I sent you guys all an email too, and I just want to read it just so everybody else can hear. I agree with about everything everybody else has said here. So what is the risk of our kids wearing masks? There's risks to wearing masks. Hope you know that. Have you looked into how the masks are affecting your kids' health and your health? Do you care about the kids' health? I'm sure you guys do, because you're here. So what are the risks for wearing masks? Have you heard of any in the news about any risks? No. They just keep telling you to wear the masks and obey their rules. So let me tell you about some of the research that I have done and what other legitimate professional doctors out there have said about the harm that masks are doing to your kids. You'll not hear this from the CDC or even Dr. Fauci. They want you to wear masks. They want to see you guys wearing masks. So oxygen is critical for our overall health. By wearing masks, you are depleting the levels of oxygen that our children are getting. We all know that without oxygen, you can die. Haven't we all thought that? 5 minutes without oxygen, you're going to die in a car wreck or something? So by wearing the masks, the children are not getting the needed oxygen for development of their brain. Do you know that you are depriving the brain's development, and the damage that has already taken place as a result cannot be reversed? Their brain is also incredibly active. It has so much to learn. The children's brain, or youth's brain, is thirsty for oxygen. The more metabolic oxygen that the organ is, the more the oxygen is required. The children and adolescents, every organ is metabolically active, and the child needs the brain to learn, and the brain needs oxygen to function. Consciously and purposely induced oxygen deficiency is an absolute deliberate health hazard. Cardiologists know how damaging it is for the heart when you deprive the brain of oxygen. Pulmonologists, I have a hard word saying that, know how damaging it is for the lungs. Oxygen deprivation damages every single organ. So the doctors, are you saying they don't know that what they know is true? They don't know what they're talking about? So, are you going to continue to force the children to wear masks, and you are going to deprive them of the needed oxygen to survive and grow and learn in your school systems? Research this on your own, and she's probably sent you some articles about that other lady. Just because you get used to wearing the masks, do you think that's right? Do you think you're still healthy? No, it's doing damage to you guys too. It's doing damage to everybody. Symptoms are headaches, drowsiness, dizziness, issues of concentration, slowing down of reaction time, reactions of cognitive time. And then, I didn't even mention the side effects of inhaling your own carbon dioxide, CO2. This is not the normal breathing process like that other lady said. Inhaling excessive carbon dioxide instead of oxygen? That's not right. Research the side effects on your own. What is this doing to our children in our schools? I don't think it's a good thing, and I'm sure a lot of other people don't either. So I just say, please consider not forcing the children to wear masks, and do your own research. Thank you.
Okay, you had a card?
Yep, just want to share this with the Board of Education. Jason, thank you so very much for the flowers from the Board of Education and the beautiful tribute at the game in Steve's honor. You're all very great friends of Steve, who we thought very much of. Thank yous. Thanks again, Jeannie and family.
All right, next up we have the discussion portion of our meeting. The second reading of policy 3520 on transportation. Mr. Alexander.
Yeah, I don't think there's a whole lot to rehash in this. It's policy 3520, just changes the policy, our transportation policy, to reflect more of a hub system than the 9-block system that we've been operating under before. So that's provided for you in the information that's been provided to you before. If there's any questions, this is second reading, so we have one more reading before it's formally approved.
Anybody have any comments or questions? All right, now we're on to the action portion of the meeting. Approval of hiring. Can I have a motion
I move that the Board of Education of District 15 approve the hiring of Gail Brown as the high school assistant principal / activities director for the upcoming 2021-22 school year.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Second by Eric. All right, Mr. Alexander. Did you have anything to comment on that at all?
No.
Okay, sorry. All right, now I'll take your votes, please. All right, that is approved, 7 yes votes. Next up, approval of bid for track services. Can I have a motion, please?
I move that the Board of Education of District 15 approve the bid from Fisher Tracks.
All right, now, can I have a second, please, on that?
Second.
I have a second from Janet. Did you have anything you wish to say on that before you flip the switch?
I do. I guess we've hit all the highlights and rationale for the track resurface project. It'd be nice to do that project this year. The total cost of the project is $84,121. The plan would be to use the $10,000 from the Champions of the Community Award that we won last year and a $2,500 donation from Homestead Land Company. We're gonna work with the track company to try and get their logo on the track itself. Doing that is a little more difficult than other places because it's a rubberized surface. So we're gonna work with that, and then also if we can get that in the right position, we would also extend that offering to other people that may wanna have their logo, other businesses that may wanna have their logo on the track for the same amount as well. So that's in the works. We're working with Fisher Track on that part of it right now to get the donation part and the logo part up to date and find out if that's actually going to be able to be done. And then the remainder of this project will be paid for through the depreciation fund, which we have the funds to do so with, and it fits the requirements of the depreciation fund.
All right, does anybody else have any comments or questions? Okay, can I have your votes, please? That is approved, 7 votes. Approval of consent to assignment of transportation agreement. Can I have a motion on that?
I move that the Board of Education of District 15 approve the consent to assignment of the transportation agreement.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Second by Janet. All right, anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, just for clarity, Mid-States Transportation Company is being sold to First Student. And so in that process, they're just asking for us to sign this consent of assignment to recognize and honor the contract that we have with Mid-States to go to First Student. So it's more of just a formality. All the same services that we receive now will be provided with that transition, and even more so from the standpoint that the First Student bus transportation system will be upgrading all software systems in their buses to include a GPS system. The name of the system is Zonar, and it will have GPS tracking abilities, and it will also have speed and braking determinations on the buses as well. So a little bit of upgrade in the technology world, but again, just recognition that we honor the contract that we had with Mid-States that will now be with First Student.
Anybody have any comments or questions? Seeing none, can I have your votes? And that is approved, 7 yes votes. All right, approval of Chromebook. Can I have a motion, please?
I move that the Board of Education of District 15 approve the quote from Sterling for 300 new Chromebooks.
And can I have a second, please?
Second.
Second by Eric. All right. Anything you want to say?
Sure, just a few brief words. If you recall, earlier in the last summer, we updated 300 Chromebooks at that time to be approved for use in the coming school year. And we had to place that order at that time in order for the computer company to be able to fill that order. So we'll have 300 Chromebooks there now that will take care of basically our freshman class and a little bit of our sophomore class. This order will complete new Chromebooks in about the whole high school. And the reason that we're ordering now This will be part of the ESSERS funds that we've talked about, and we'll have a more thorough breakdown of those funds for you at the committee of the whole meeting. But this expense would be paid for out of using those ESSERS funds. And again, it's for the same purpose, ordering now so we have them for the school year because of the shortage of computer chips and everything that's taking place. It's in our best interest to order now. We are also, as we did before, piggybacking that order with another school so we get a better discount on the computers as well.
Anybody have any comments or questions? All right, can we votes, please? All right, that is approved, 7 yes votes. Next up, instructional specialist. Yeah, go ahead.
I move that the Board of Education of District 15 approve the hiring of 2 instructional specialists for the upcoming 2021-22 school year.
I have a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Eric. All right, Dr. Nielsen and Mr. Alexander.
We're gonna kind of, I'm gonna invite Dr. Nielsen in this conversation as well because I'm gonna kind of start and then she's gonna wrap it up. I guess we've talked a lot about this. I know as John said at the committee of the whole meeting, we spent a lot of time talking about it. And really what it boils down to is the number one factor that impacts learning in a classroom is not class size. It's not curriculum. Those things are important. Curriculum's important because it provides a scope and sequence, and it's not programs that they provide a guide, but the most important factor in a classroom is the effectiveness of the teacher. And so I'm not gonna elaborate too much more on that. I will just say that in the 17 years I've been a superintendent, this is an idea that I wish I would have thought of before, and maybe implemented in schools that I've been in before. So I think it has the opportunity to help us with new teachers that are coming in, as well as second year, third year, fourth year, fifth year teachers that are still in the Beatrice public school system that we want to be able to provide support for and keep a hold of. So with that, the last thing I'll say is the funding for this project, for the additional spots of the instructional specialist, would come from the ESSERS funds that we've also spoken of before. So I'm gonna, at this point, turn it over to Dr. Nielsen and let her kind of wrap it up.
Okay, at the committee of the whole, because we had a great discussion, we were not able to get to this video, and I want to show it. It is Robert Eaker is an educational specialist and does a great job just talking about teachers and just talking about, where we are. And so one of the things that the video or the presentation that he has, and we are not going to watch the whole entire thing, so don't expect that. It is called Friday Night in America, a Common Sense Approach to Improving Student Achievement. So we're just gonna watch 3 minutes of it, and then I will conclude.
We hire a teacher, isn't that right? We call him coach, by the way. But we hire this coach, a teacher, essentially to teach 10 unit plans, 1 unit plan a week, with a summative assessment on Friday night. That's it. And so the idea is pretty clear. The goal is clear. We want to win the games on Friday night, and we've hired a teacher to do that. By the way, I always thought that when I was a teacher, I thought that was a pretty good deal. I mean, I'd like to have the job of teaching 10 unit plans once a week and get paid a full salary for that. But that being said, here's what I find is really interesting. Are these football games important? Absolutely. It's unbelievable how important they are. And I think this is my first big point coming up. Take a note, take a pencil. Here's what it is. If something's important to us, really important, we will do certain things that ordinarily we might not do. So just reflect on this question. Are these football games important? Yes, and because they are important, the school will do certain things, the school district will do certain things, the community will do certain things without even questioning. For example, these 10 unit plans that we're going to teach once a week, right? We hire a coach to do that. But the first assumption we make And no one questions this. I find this just amazing. No one will question this. That is, the assumption is this individual coach, this individual teacher cannot be successful by themselves. They need to surround themselves with a team of professionals that have similar backgrounds, similar skills, similar interests. In the classroom, we would say teachers who teach the same or similar content. And so almost every high school will hire a coaching staff to assist the coach in order to be successful, have the kids be successful in the summative assessment. Gosh, wouldn't that be terrific? Imagine you're a math teacher. You say, okay, you're going to teach Algebra 1, and here is your coaching team that's going to help you do this. I think most teachers are what? Here's the state standards, shoo, good luck, go teach. And by the way, make sure all your kids learn these standards at a high level. Do it by yourself.
So as we look at that, and he does a nice job of just really, if you watch the whole thing, he does a great job of really kind of connecting schools to that Friday football and connecting education, connecting teachers and professionals. How do we help each other get better? How do we push each other to that next level? Because if we truly think that it is a strong priority, we will do what we need to do without questioning it, because we know that it's a strong priority. We know that we need it in order to, help our students. So as we look at student learning and growth, if they are important in our district, we also know that teacher learning and growth are important too. Because in order to help our students, in order to help them continue to improve, we've got to make sure that we have the strongest teachers in our classroom. We have very amazing teachers in our district. We also have a lot of new teachers that are coming into our district too. We want to make sure that that new teacher is very strong, so that when they have a veteran teacher right next to them who's been teaching 5, 10, 15, 20 plus years, they are right there with them. They are right there at that same level because they've been given the support and the help to help them continue to grow.
So you're recommending funding this through federal funding for COVID relief, correct? ESSER funding?
Yes.
So how do we sustain these positions when that money runs out?
One of the things that we looked at is, first of all, just evaluating, because we want to make sure that it is working. I mean, that is one of the pieces that we want to do, so we would be looking at data to determine if it's working.
So if it's not working, would you eliminate those positions then?
Yes.
Okay.
Aaron, I had the same question as you. I think when this was first brought up, a couple months ago, really looking at, number one, we kind of talked about doing another grade school principal, what are some other subjects that we need additional teachers in? And then, of course, doing some research and having conversations with Jason and Jackie. Fortunately, this is probably something that we can utilize the ESSER funds for. It is a short-term 3-year somewhat commitment with this. And so it probably is a good time that we can utilize that. Good time of
Potentially
any.
have employees for 3 years.
For
and
3
then
years.
terminate them if we can't afford them afterwards.
Yes, potentially, but you also look at how many teachers we have retire, resign each year. And so these would be certified teachers, correct? So more than likely they can fall right back into the classroom if this fails. So I don't think we have that, the chances of having to just say, sorry, you're now no longer employed here are probably pretty slim at that point.
Are there better uses for this funding than instructional coaches, an elementary principal, or?
An administrator salary cannot be used with ESSER funding. So that is one thing that has been looked at, but the administrators cannot be, none of the superintendents, any building principal, assistant principal, their salaries cannot be used for ESSER funding. Because we did look at that.
So these are technically not administrative positions.
No, they are not administrative positions. They are-
I still have an issue approving something where I don't know what the cost is. I said that, I think, at the committee, the whole meeting. I have serious heartburn with that. I am not opposed to this, but I want to see a price tag. What is the salary? What are the benefits? And I understand that maybe some of these people are currently employed in the district, but I'm assuming they're not gonna be making the same salary.
It would be a teacher salary with, they would have an extended contract, so it would be 15 days during the summertime, so they may break it up as to 7 days at the beginning of the year, or 8 days at the beginning of the year, 7 days at the end of the year, or they move it throughout. So it would be a teacher salary.
But we have a wide range for teacher salary.
Yes,
We
we
have 32,000 to up here. So
Yes.
I guess that's where I guess that's an answer that I guess I personally need.
I would say that in response to that, and that's a good question. In response to that, we know that internally we have some great candidates for this position. Now, whether they'll apply or not, we don't know that answer. So, with that said, if the person that applies for the job is in a position that we don't have to refill, which there are some of those places, then a 15-day extended contract would cost the district about $9,000 on the basis of the most highly paid teacher that we have on the salary schedule. Okay, does that make sense?
Yes, but then we still, if they're in a position where we have to replace a teacher, then it's not just costing me $9,000.
Right. So then, on the backside of that, if we have to replace a teacher, then that is dependent on where that teacher falls on the salary schedule. But if it's a beginning teacher, it's the base salary plus whatever insurance they would qualify for. So call it $35,000 plus if it's a family insurance, it's about $24,000, so about $60,000.
I think I'm struggling most with the addition of 2 positions because we've been so budget conscious and we've replaced teachers just through attrition. We haven't added as some have retired, and maybe that'll be different this year with the number of retirements, but it just, I don't know, it doesn't really make sense to me.
I mean, I mentioned before, how have we made it this far without an instructional coach? I mean, I get a lot of comment in the public saying that we have mentors, programs, and veteran teachers out there that these newer teachers that are struggling can look to, and the voters asked me to be fiscally responsible. And I think that hiring these 2 positions, like I agree with what Lisa said, it's just too many uncertainties in the future. You talk about the ESSERS funding, that's great, but when that runs out, you mentioned at the last meeting, we'd use flex or title funding, but I know it changes every year, but what are we gonna cut from to fund this? And I know I haven't had one person come to me in favor of this out in the public. And so I'm just relaying what they're telling me. They feel like there are too many chiefs, not enough Indians. And we got budget issues, and I think just at this point in time, it's something we need to look at more.
My concern would be, not that I don't think maybe it's a good idea, but before I came on the board, they set up PLCs, and that was supposed to help kids and teachers get better in subject areas. Then since I've been on the board, I was asked to purchase new evaluation tools for administrators, because that would make teachers better. And and also when I look at class sizes at the high school in particular, in the same subject area, you'll have a class of 30 and a class of 13, and that just seems, we all know that I believe, you can tell me that the number one factor I will agree with is a highly effective teacher, but I think they are a little bit more effective if they have 15 to 20 kids, not 30 students. I just don't believe that you can be as effective with 30 students. In a math class, for example, that means you get to the student one time during the hour if they need additional help. So, but I think we've got to equalize those classes somehow. We hired a person at the high school, particularly with a background in helping teachers. So I think we've done a lot of things. My other grave concern is that and I guess I could have maybe lived with one, but when we do two, I know what it's like when somebody takes a position like that, they're super good at it, they love it, and then we say, you're going back to the classroom. It's a really hard pill to swallow. And if you're an elementary teacher, you have a little more flexibility. If you're a high school or middle school specialty teacher, you don't have that flexibility. I guess I could have watched to see how it worked with one teacher, but to do it with two, I can't support that.
Does anybody else have any comments or questions? All right. Hearing none. Can I have your votes, please?
Everybody ready?
Yep. All right. That fails with 4 no votes and 3 yes votes.
Yep. Got it?
All right, moving on, we have the mask portion. Now, I know, Doris, you hate this, but I'm not gonna ask for a motion yet because I've already heard multiple ideas tonight. So I would like to discuss it before we present a motion. What's that?
We have to have the motion to discuss it.
Not in. We don't have to have a motion to discuss this, that's what the attorney told us, right? Okay. Okay. Then go ahead and give me a motion and we will change it after the fact, if that's more comfortable.
I move that the Board of Education of District 15 make mask wearing optional for all students and staff for the remainder of the 2020-21 school year. If there is a considerable risk due to increased outbreak or increased positivity rates or sudden spikes in school cases, the board reserves the right to reinstate the mask mandate.
Second.
Second by Aaron. All right. Does anybody have any comments or questions or wishes to change?
I have a couple questions. Has anyone talked, or the task force have they met since the last time? Has anyone reached out to Dr. Joseph Brewer on any of the matters we talked about last time? Or I know Janet mentioned someone that we wanted to maybe bring into the discussion. No.
I spoke with the Brewers, but I did not reach out to anyone because I didn't have that directive. I didn't feel that I should take that initiative.
Has anyone got the new public health solution numbers for the last week? I believe it was 0 new hospitalizations or deaths.
As of the 8th, it was 0 hospitalizations, 0 deaths, 6 cases in Gage County, and 27 throughout the PHS district, which is 5 counties.
And does anybody know how many other schools in the area and what schools they are that have gone mask optional?
Had that
Tri-County
information
did.
earlier. There were
Right.
No,
They did not.
Tri-County did not. That was posted on Facebook, but that's not accurate information.
Okay.
To my knowledge, there's one other school in the district that has, or has gone to optional masks, which is allowing the option out like we did at the start of the school year. And they started that way as well. And then they went mandate, and now they're going back to the option.
I think
To my knowledge.
West Point, Nebraska is another district that has optional masks. They have for a couple weeks.
And do we have the current number of active cases in our schools? I haven't got that last recent update. I think it usually went out on a Friday.
In our district.
Okay. Yeah.
On the COVID dashboard.
I think it's 4.
Cases are 4 quarantines.
4 active cases. Could be students or staff.
Okay.
I have a question. No?
Not this one.
Sorry.
Anybody else have any?
Yeah, just real quick, back on the task force thing. I mean, we created this thing as if we were taking it seriously and trying to get more information. I mean, there's information coming out every day about this, and the fact that no one met over this last month, did we just give up on that, or how did that transpire on the task force meeting and getting more information, and, you know, so we can get it to the board and discuss it at these meetings so we can make a proper decision when we vote? Because that was our main resource, right? That was our main team, task force, to go out and get information to bring it to the board. It seemed like we were pretty motivated at the last meeting, you know, talking about moving forward with this task force, because, you know, we got to get that information to the board meetings and to the public. So I'm just wondering what happened. How did that just suddenly end? I know Aaron and Eric were on that.
I haven't heard anything.
I think in the last board meeting it was, you know, we'll reevaluate this month. I think one thing at the task force was really, you know, looking at what is within the public health district, what are our numbers and so forth. And I mean, as you, Aaron, mentioned, things have declined significantly. So I think that's, in my opinion, that's the numbers we're looking at or discussing tonight in making this decision. Eric?
I would appreciate it if Mr. Alexander would explain what will happen with quarantine if students do not have masks on.
Sure, regardless of opinions or decisions or anything else tonight, the one thing that is a fact is that the quarantine orders are still in place. And we are not in charge of the quarantine orders. And when I say we, I mean the public school system. Not me as a superintendent, not Dr. Nielsen as the assistant superintendent, not our high school administrators, not our elementary administrators. We are not in charge of those quarantine orders. It just needs to be understood that whatever decision is made tonight, if a student tests positive and is not wearing a mask and comes into contact with other students that are not wearing masks, then that contact tracing will be in effect, and then quarantine orders will be in place. So that's all I wish to make sure that everybody understands tonight. And I think it's prudent for everybody to understand that, because as we approach the end of the school year, there are some people in here with senior students and others that if they would become in contact with a student that tests positive or an adult that tests positive during a certain time period, it could result in some consequences that could be pretty costly to that individual. So as you make your decision, just keep that at the forefront. And if you
So
need,
you're asking us to make a decision considering only the seniors in our district and not every other
No,
student in our district?
I'm not asking you to make a decision only considering a certain group of people. I'm asking you to understand that.
I think I wanted you to explain it for, particularly the high school, I think becomes problematic because kids move so much. If they're in elementary and a student in a class test positive that class, and it's happened like at the preschool, the whole class has had to go home. But at the high school, if that student, I guess goes, is this true, goes throughout the whole day, period 1 through 8, they will, each class that student was in will then have to quarantine? Is that accurate?
If the students are not wearing masks.
You have to be within 6 feet for over 15 minutes to have to quarantine, so it would only affect.
That's where the contract tracing would come into
Yeah.
effect.
And the quarantine rules have changed, correct? From the beginning of COVID to now, so it's not the full 14 days, correct? And is there a test out of that? I can't remember.
After 5 days, they can test out, and come back on day 8.
I know I'm not supposed to say anything, but I do have an email into Dr. Antone, who actually creates these, with the questions of where we are right now with the reproductive numbers, at what point do those policies change? But I'm little old me, I'm sure if somebody with more authority emailed, it might get answered sooner, because it was last week when I emailed, I don't have an answer. But he is the one that makes those recommendations for our state.
We asked that question of the Public Health Solutions Department, and we're told that they didn't have any idea when those would be changed.
Right, it's Dr. Antone that makes them, because I called public health. And
That's what they said as well, but
They get-
they said they didn't know when he would make that decision.
So if someone was worried about catching something, as long as they have their mask on, they would not be quarantined. So if it was a senior, they just need to wear the mask, they don't have to worry about it. So if we approve to opt out, it's up to the individual person to make that decision for themselves, whether they want to take the risk. Did I make that sound right? Correct?
Do you know, one of the things I did ask Mr. Alexander to do is to check what the liability to the district would be if we do not follow directed health measures. And you did reach out to the school attorney, and they said the liability is minimal, it's basically lacking. So that, you know, that to me was very important, that we do not put our district in a financial bind because we didn't follow directed health measures. You know, back in February, I did make a comment that if we had our staff and anybody who wanted to be vaccinated, that would make a difference in how I looked at this. Because right now they also talk about if you are meeting with people who are fully vaccinated, you do not have to wear your masks. They still recommend that you do social distancing, if I'm not mistaken. But, you know, I do feel that we have allowed adequate time for those people who wanted to be vaccinated to be vaccinated. We're never going to have 100%. I think we have to be realistic about that. We have a really low rate of infection right now, and the other thing is this motion does allow us to come in and do a mask mandate again if we see a significant increase or a spike. And quite honestly, I'm comfortable going to optional masks at this point, and again, the responsibility will totally fall on the parents. If you have a senior and you are adamant that you want them to go through graduation, then I would really recommend that your child continue to wear a mask. That's totally up to you. The one thing I would question is if you have a senior who it tests positive for COVID right before graduation and they show up at graduation, how do we handle that? That would be the one question. They're technically quarantined, but if they show up anyway, then what happens, and what type of burden does that put on administration?
Just to clarify, this was passed, and somebody who wasn't wearing a mask gets the virus. If you're wearing your mask, you don't have to quarantine, correct?
Correct.
Colt, would you repeat your question in the microphone?
Yeah. Sorry. I just asked if somebody who wasn't wearing the mask got the virus, if the people who wore the mask would have to quarantine. Okay.
other thing is, I think that they've opened up vaccinations to 16 and older, so, you know, again, you may have students who get a vaccine. My granddaughter is a senior this year, and she's quarantined right now because she sat at a table with 6 kids and one tested positive for COVID, so.
I think it's just important that as you make a decision on it, you understand all the dynamics of it, that's all.
All right, I think everybody's had a chance. Lisa, did you have a chance to speak, or did you?
No,
just-
I'm good.
All right, with that, I think we've talked this to death, so Jason, can you give us the votes? All right, as approved with 6 votes and 1 nay. Next up, we have the administrator's report. Mr. Hickey is going to speak about the Houses of Orange.
And I come bearing gifts. Bribe you guys. All right. You had no idea what I was asking your shirt size.
Thank you.
So thank you. But I've had the ability to speak about this to the radio. I've had the ability to spend hours working with the Beatrice Middle School staff, classified and certified. And as you know, from a couple of years ago, the district has invested a lot of the federal Title II dollars of professional development into attending the Ron Clark Academy in Atlanta, Georgia. As a middle school, in about 2 weeks, we'll have, I think, 9 of our staff have been down there. Truly an amazing experience. We've brought back countless hours of professional development back to us in conversation, and truly feel that this BMS Houses of Orange concept will impact our students and our staff and the culture of BMS. The research, it's rooted in research that supports the academic and the behavioral improvements of students with this concept, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun. So I don't want to sit here and talk to you for hours and hours and hours, because that's how long it's taken to put some of this stuff together. But I handed a little packet you can flip through. We had the ability to use some of our BHS grads to do some graphic design on the front. We've kind of dubbed the House of Orange, the football field, with the BMS Houses of Orange. We have 8 houses on the front. You can see the 4 that we've adopted from Ron Clark at the bottom, and the 4 that we created of ourselves on top. The 4 on top, the names are Nishtavan, Tapatahi, Tyaga, and Valente, and they stand for 4 characteristics we want our students to embody. One of those, loyalty, integrity. Loyalty is Nishtavan, Tapatahi is integrity, Tyaga is perseverance, Valente is valor. And then the 4 at the bottom are Ron Clark, and we can't adjust those. But so if you flip the little packet, I'm not going to go verbatim through it, but in a nutshell, the first 5 things is kind of what it will do for the middle school. The students will, and this is kind of a secret, so if there's any students watching this, which there might be, besides some that are sitting behind me, they don't know about this. We're going to kind of tease this as the school year, the quarter wraps up, to try to get some excitement built in for the next school year. But in a nutshell, as you see on the second page, is students will spin a wheel to be sorted into a house, and they'll stay in that from 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. Everyone is in a house. Our teachers are all sorted at this point. Staff members have been, our classified staff, our paras, our custodians, our lunch staff, all of them will choose a house. And really to create this sense of a team within a team. And I think that's really important. Middle schoolers especially are very competitive. A lot of kids in general are competitive, but for doing the right things in school. And so I think it's going to be really neat. We're going to put some TVs throughout the hallways. We've got some grant funds that we've been awarded to do that, where students, will they get points for as little as picking up a piece of trash, that no one asked them to do that and they just did it, and they're recognized for that. Their picture will come up on the TV as they scored a point for their team, and as they walk through the passing periods, these TVs will show a real life display of a leaderboard, and the goal at the end of the year is to win. So it's all in good fun and good spirit, but it's got a lot of principles, as I've stated below that, for the rationale why we bring this into the middle school. So I would like to, if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those. Otherwise, I'll honor your time and move forward and let you look at the rest of these, or the houses specifically that we've created, and some of the details and work that our teachers have done for the last year and a half.
So the kids haven't even heard about this yet?
So what the kids have seen, it's a good question, the kids have seen a wheel that we have in the school. It doesn't come out very often, but when they see it, they'll, whoa, what is that? Or I see a wheel in the media center. What's that all about? And so we have, Mrs. Dittmer has played around with how the software works with keeping track of the points in the media center. Some of the kids, the 8th graders, have been up there and they've been enthralled with, holy moly, that's awesome. How did they get their face on the board? And sort of that sort of thing. So they're very intrigued, and that's our goal moving forward toward the end of the 4th quarter, is to get them kind of hooked a little bit for something to come back to, especially with the year that, the trials and tribulations and things that we've went through this year. Something to look forward to in August. So they know a little bit, not very much.
Did you base this on the, like Paddock has that thing going?
Yeah, so it's paddock lanes, you're absolutely right. They have, there's this, I would call it an elementary version with animals and things, and ours, but it's based on the same principles. Ron Clark Academy is where the professional development came from. I really think from the middle school standpoint, our kids, and I think elementary too, but our that age group of kids really buys into the competitiveness, especially even in the classroom. If you say this question's worth a piece of candy or whatever it may be, or this question's, if you said it in the house concept, this question's worth a house point. It's not only it's about me getting right, it's about me earning something for my team. It's really cool watching that work out, going down to Atlanta and seeing how they put it into practice. So
this has taken effect, or it will take effect
it will this fall. So we're at this point, the teachers have chosen their houses, and classified staff have chosen their houses. The students, the 6th graders, will find out the first day when they come back alone, or they're on that first half day. 7th and 8th graders will find out the second day of school, and then it's on from there. So I think it'll be really fun for everyone, and the research. I hope Beatrice Middle School will fall into where the research supports the academic and the behavioral progresses utilizing this system. So. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me via email after you take a look at that.
All right, thank you very much. Next up, Superintendent Report, Mr. Alexander.
Just a couple of short things. We will have a full-fledged ESSERS report for you at the Committee of the Whole meeting on April 22nd. We'll try to provide you with some information prior to that meeting, so if there's questions, you can feel free to ask those ahead of time as well. I'm also planning on having Johnson Controls representatives come speak about upgrades to the HVAC systems that are also allowable under the ESSERS funding. So that is coming your way at the Committee of the Whole meeting. Just a couple quick updates for you in regards to legislation. First of all, today in the legislature, LB 147 was advanced to general file, which basically is a bill that takes the OPS retirement system and puts it under the purview of the Nebraska Public Employee Retirement System set up, so if you have followed that, which I know many of you who have been on the board for many years, or maybe you just follow it for fun, know that OPS's retirement system has failed over the course of the last several years, and because of that, legislation, state senators have provided legislation that will change that OPS retirement system and put it into the place of the Nebraska Public Employee Retirement System purview. So, don't know what effect that will have on the Nebraska Public Employee Retirement System yet, or if any, but stay tuned and we'll let you know. Special education funding measure advances, and this is an important one for Beatrice Public Schools. So, if you haven't heard the word or the bill, LB 135, introduced by Senator Wishart, you'll want to follow that. It was placed on general file today. Basically what this does, it's in terms of school financing, it's the most, probably, I hate to use this term, but the most fair bill for all schools in the state of Nebraska. Because the one thing that we all have is students who are identified as special education or special needs. At the beginning of the IDEA laws in early 1970s, late 1960s, special education was 100% fully funded, Individuals Disability Education Act. Shortly after that, after the federal government had instituted that law, the funding had started to deplete or be drawn back little by little until we got to where we are now, which is just basically right below 50%. So, and it kind of varies a little bit between 48 to 50%. So special education programs in schools across the United States started out at 100% funding in 1970. Currently now we're at about 49%. This bill will increase funding for the 22-23 school year and 23-24 school year to the reimbursement rate at least 60%. So in that time period, it goes up to 60%. In 24-25 and 25-26, it goes up to be at least 70%. And 26-27, and each year thereafter, the reimbursement rate must be at least 80%. So that's good news from the state, from the standpoint that for all schools in the state, they will see some more reimbursement for special education students. And it's something that every school can come to agreement and unification on, that it's a good thing for kids. A couple other bills that I will point out to you. LB 364, the income tax for private school scholarship funds, if you've heard about this before, is set for general file debate. It has been reduced from a $10 million cap to a $5 million cap. This is Linehan's priority bill that funds private education donations for people who make donations over a certain amount. They get a certain amount of property tax credit back. So that is advanced but reduced to $5 million instead of the initial $10 million cap. LB2 reduces the valuation of ag land for purposes of school bonds to 50%, has advanced 8.0, it's Breezy's priority bill, includes LB 79 to create a growth percentage for the Property Tax Credit Act. So there's a couple of extra caveats in that bill. I did send these to you earlier, so if you have any questions, feel free to ask. One that I would point out to you is LB 644. We talked about this in our governmental relations meeting the other day. It is a property tax request act. It's basically, it's affectionately referred to as the postcard bill, where it would take all the information that we currently send out on our tax levy and have in the newspaper every year. It would take that with all the public entities within our county, so the county, the city, and put those on a postcard to be sent out to every patron in the district. I'm all for people having the information they need. It's already in the newspaper. I see it as a duplication of services and an unfunded mandate on the legislature's part. So,
Expensive.
and it will be expensive, and nobody has an idea who's going to pay for it. But I will tell you, it will be you, the taxpayers, that will pay for it. So, I think it's, as I said before, it's all information that we already put in the newspaper right now, and can be accessed by anybody via the web if they subscribe to the newspaper, or they can get it by going and purchasing newspapers. So there's several other bills that are of important note that deal with curriculum and finance, but in the essence of time, I'm going to skip over those. And if you have questions of the report that was sent to you, I won't belabor those any longer. And if you have questions, don't be afraid to ask.
All right, does anybody have any comments or questions for Jason? All right, hearing none. The next regular meeting of the Board of Education will be May 10th, 2021 at 7 p.m. in the Administration Building. The Committee of the Whole meeting will be April 22nd, 2021 at 6 p.m. in the Administration Building. An agenda for the meeting, which shall be kept continually current, is readily available for public inspection at the Superintendent's office during normal business hours. I will now take a motion to adjourn.
Oh, I guess I already adjourned myself. Sorry. I don't know, what should I say? I move that School District 15 adjourn. Oh, no, I move that the meeting, the board meeting of School District 15 adjourn.
I have a motion. Can I have a second? Second by Aaron. All in favor? And there we go. We have 7 yes votes. We are adjourned.